I'm sad that the people of Davis lost that illusion of safety because it was a really wonderful illusion.
The person believed to be responsible for a string of deadly stabbings in Davis is behind bars. Now the community focuses on returning to normalcy and trying to regain its sense of security. 2 years later, the state's Reparations task force finally has recommendations for lawmakers. They're calling for an apology and money to repay Black Californians for discriminatory practices and preserving heritage with food.
Yes, I love cooking all these years, and I'm glad to share it with you.
How a new cookbook will serve as a cornerstone of Asian American Pacific Islander culture. Let's get to the point. So after a terrifying week in Davis, tonight residents are slowly trying to get back some sort of normalcy after Davis police arrested the person they believe is responsible for the stabbings in the city. And many residents this week are just saddened by what happened, but they are still cautiously optimistic that Davis will remain the safe place that it's always been. Our Jeannie Nguyen is in Davis with how residents are now coping.
Now, there is still a sense of sadness here in Davis. As you can tell by this bench here, it's filled with flowers, candles, and photos to honor the lives lost. Now, I did speak with a few locals who do tell me that they are concerned about the future of public safety here in the city, but they have high hopes that Davis will continue to be a safe place to live. Taking advantage of this nice and sunny day in Davis, Brenna Bellavance couldn't miss the opportunity to get outside with her dogs.
Come on, baby, you wanna go?
But being at Central Park today is a reminder of what happened just a little more than a week ago.
I'm sad that the people of Davis lost that illusion of safety because it was a really wonderful illusion. I'm sad that people are mourning their loved ones.
Davis police have arrested 21-year-old Carlos Dominguez, accused of stabbing and killing David Bro and Kareem Najim, and stabbing and injuring a woman. And with another mass shooting in Allen, Texas this weekend, Bellavance can't help but reflect.
The world is in a lot of pain right now, and that applies to Davis too.
As the city continues to try to recover from this, Bellavance says she's unsure on what she expects police to do next when it comes to safety in the community.
He was a kid that was hiding within a town that is almost entirely kids. I don't know what I don't blame them. I don't know what they could have done differently.
A Davis police spokesperson tells ABC 10 there isn't a specific plan on public safety moving forward, but that the community's well-being is their top priority. For the Moons,
it's a great community of Davis. We've heard nothing but good things about Davis.
They believe the police department did everything it could to keep the community updated and protected.
I think the law enforcement did a great job. I also think the community did a wonderful job calling the police. I know our neighbors were always on the lookout.
And when it comes to what they want to see in terms of a safety plan for the community moving forward,
I think it's a lesson learned that they need to be prepared for these big ordeals. And I think that's one thing they should have is more CCTV. I think that would absolutely help reduce crime.
A Davis police spokesperson does tell me that they already have a few security cameras all around the city. In terms of adding more, the chief will be reviewing the need for additional cameras and will be sending those recommendations to City Council.
And the suspect in these three stabbings is 21-year-old Carlos Dominguez, and he appeared in court for the first time just this past Friday. He only spoke when the judge asked him to clarify his name. His arraignment hearing lasted only 12 minutes, where the judge formally read the charges against him, and he's facing 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Dominguez pleaded not guilty and was denied bail, and we're also hearing from his family for the first time, who say they're in complete shock and that his mother is really taking this the hardest. And one family member told us, quote, "Me and my entire family can't believe it. He was always a great student. He had straight A's in high school. We never noticed any signs of anything. He never got in trouble at school or in any fights." Now, Dominguez is also on a detainer by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. And this means that ICE would take him into custody if he is released from jail in Yolo County. And according to an ICE official, Dominguez entered the United States back in April of 2009. He is from El Salvador. He crossed into the country as an unaccompanied minor. He was transferred to a family member, and his case was closed 3 years later. And tonight, UC Davis students are back to attending in-person evening classes for the first time since police arrested Dominguez. Students we spoke to say that they are still worried about walking to their classes, especially at night. The Academic Senate has extended the undergraduate pass/not pass deadline to next Friday, May 19th, something that was requested by students.
Last week I didn't go to a single class, or I went to 2, and our whole quarter was put on hold, so I think people need the extension of pass no pass right now just because fear, and there was no school, and we have midterms again today, tomorrow.
Safe Rides for students will also continue to operate with extended hours for the time being. One person is dead and 2 others are injured after a drive-by shooting last night in the town of Thornton, just north of Stockton. The suspect shot at a home as he drove by, and it's unclear if that suspect knew the people or if it was random. The identity of the victim has not been released. And a teenage girl was the deadly victim of a mass shooting that left 5 others hurt at a house party in Chico. Today, police identified her as 17-year-old Justin Stubbe, and it happened Saturday morning around 3:30. According to witnesses, a person fired from a car. So far, no one has been arrested. A new law signed by President Biden last month officially ends all emergency declarations related to the pandemic this Thursday. So that includes Title 42. That's the pandemic era rule that blocked undocumented immigrants from crossing the southern border. The new law will also institute sweeping changes across the healthcare system. People will have to pay for COVID vaccines depending on coverage, and COVID test kits will no longer be provided through the federal government. And the Reparations Task Force voted over the weekend on their final recommendations for the state. The group was created just 2 years ago to analyze and determine the best way to repay African Americans for discriminatory practices. So they are going to hand over the recommendations to the legislature by July 1st, and lawmakers will then determine if and how they want to turn them into law. Political reporter Morgan Reiner has all the details.
More than 100 people gathered in Oakland on Saturday to express frustrations over the impact slavery has had on African Americans.
We often talk about reparations and people say that we're getting a handout, but we've given this country, let alone the whole world, a handout for the last 200 years. No, 500 years. U.S.
Representative Barbara Lee, who was running for Senate, weighed in during public comment.
Reparations are not a luxury for our people, but a human right long overdue for millions of Americans. Millions of Americans. A promise of 40 acres and a mule made to formerly enslaved people over 150 years ago has yet to be filled.
In this 34-page document the Reparations Task Force approved, it outlines how much Black Californians who are descendants of slaves could be compensated. $13,600 each year for health harms, $148,000 for housing discrimination, $115,000 for over-policing. Depending on how long the recipient has lived in the state, that means a person could get up to $1.2 million.
The state of California will offer a formal apology on behalf of the people of California for the perpetration of gross human rights violations and crimes against humanity on African slaves and their descendants.
The task force also approved a formal apology they believe the state should provide, like the state has for other marginalized groups.
And a big topic over the last 2 years in regards to these meetings are who qualifies for payments. So it is lineage-based, going to descendants of slaves or freed slaves. In its model, the task force estimates that there's less than 2 million people who could qualify, but that is still potentially billions of dollars. All right, after the break, neighbors of this iconic park are complaining that a city pool is becoming a magnet for mosquitoes, the unique way that the city is tackling the problem. We'll have that coming up.
And we are going to see a much different weather pattern as well, going from unseasonably cool weather to that breeding ground of warmer conditions. We'll talk about how close we'll be to 100s.
And still to come, we're celebrating food and the power it has to preserve culture.
Every ethnic group should do a community cookbook, because that is like sharing some of the best parts of the culture.
The local cookbook will feature 150 family recipes aimed at educating and bringing people together through tradition. We're back right after this. Memorial Day weekend is on the mind of many. It's still a few weeks away, but it still looks a lot like Christmas up in Tahoe. Look at this time-lapse video that was taken today, Monica.
I know,
Yikes.
Beautiful. But I've been hearing from a lot of folks up at Tahoe saying, we're done. Oh. They got a mix of rain, snow, graupel, hail for today. It's been a tough winter for
Oh,
those
yeah,
folks.
definitely.
Yeah.
What are
We
we
still
looking
have
at
one
for-
of the passes that's closed heading into the eastern entry of Yosemite. It's been closed since the end of October last year. So right now our snowpack in that area is running at 244% of average. Our average opening date for Tioga Pass is May 25th, and it looks very unlikely that's going to happen. In fact, many people are saying it's not going to be until July that we get that eastern entry open to Yosemite on Tioga Pass. The latest opening that we've had is back in 2019 on July 1st, but the snowpack at that point was only 175% of average, and we're running way ahead of that. That's why it might not be open until July. Now, we got a fresh dusting of powder coming in for today, especially in that 80-50 corridor. Not so much around Yosemite. Most of this has been falling north of I-80 throughout the day, with accumulation coming in the mix of rain and snow. Saw a few thunderstorms as well in the northern part of the Sacramento Valley. You can see how far below average we've been. Average high 78 degrees. We've been running roughly about 10 degrees below that. And now we're in a complete shift of that weather pattern. We're watching that storm track to the north of us, above normal temperatures, higher heat risk, and also a slight chance for thunderstorms coming in, not only for tomorrow, but into our Mother's Day weekend, particularly for the Sierra. Here you can see how we're starting off with cloud cover for tomorrow throughout the valley. Those showers return to the forecast by tomorrow afternoon through the early evening in the Sierra and for the Tahoe Basin. And then we'll start to clear things out for Wednesday. Things start to return back to that pattern, though, by Sunday for Memorial Day. So a look at our 10-day forecast. You can see for the Mother's Day weekend, it is going to be quite toasty, highs in the mid-90s.
Today marked the 45th annual California Peace Officers Memorial Ceremony. 9 officers are being added to the memorial this year. That includes Elk Grove officer Ty Lenahan, who was killed by a suspected DUI driver on his way to work in January of 2022. Hundreds of peace officers, community members, and state officials from across California gathered on state capitol grounds to honor the officers who lost their lives. Governor Gavin Newsom gave remarks at the ceremony honoring those who lost their lives.
A choice every day to put their lives on the line in pursuit of justice and safety. Long shifts, endless stress, no fame, no fortune. Too few thank yous from the public they served. That's a special and unique form of public service. It requires a special kind of character, a special kind of bravery to be a peace officer.
Family members laid a single red rose over the name of their loved one on the memorial monument. The city of Roseville is getting recognized for having one of the best parks and recreation agencies in the nation. So Roseville Parks and Recreation and Libraries is a finalist for the National Gold Medal Award for Excellence in Park and Recreation Management. The agency manages 81 developed parks, 3 libraries, 2 pools, golf courses, thousands of acres of open space, and much, much more. Roseville won the Gold Medal Award back in 1972 and competes against hundreds of cities all over the U.S. The winner will be announced in October. Very exciting. Wishing them luck. All right, but over in Stockton, people who use the city's iconic Victory Park are concerned that the park's pool is becoming a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So a portion of the pool is filled with rainwater. Look at this. But it turns out that the San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control planted mosquito-eating fish and spray the pool every 2 weeks. If not treated, standing water anywhere can be home to mosquitoes. We all know that. And they can also be carrying the deadly West Nile virus.
So it is important for people to be cautious, walk around their house. Even a bottle cap of water is enough for mosquitoes to develop in.
And by the way, the city of Stockton has secured enough funding to build a new pool at Victory Park. A state grant requires construction to be completed by next year. Okay, so for many families, coming together and spending time with one another usually always involves food. And now ACC Seniors, a local nonprofit that offers culturally sensitive services to older adults, is hoping to capture that all in a brand new cookbook that will not only bring people together, but also be a learning experience. Our Jeannie Nguyen gives us a look inside at some of the recipes and also the inspiration behind it.
In Molly Chow's kitchen,
You'll find a lot of cooking.
Stir fry. You stir fry. Use
That's right. We stir fry this before you do anything.
And a lot of conversation with Elizabeth Shu Wong. These two say the pandemic brought them together to cook on a weekly basis. And in this house, Molly is known as Auntie Molly.
She calls me Auntie Molly because in Chinese, it's very respectful for the elders.
On the menu today,
garlic,
jai.
The jai, like we showed you earlier, has 13 ingredients.
It's a traditional vegetarian Chinese dish that's usually eaten during the first day of the Lunar New Year, with the hope of bringing luck. Some of the ingredients in their recipe.
We have fujuk, tofu, lotus root, mukyi. Mukyi is fungus. Isn't it called fungus?
Yes.
Or cloud air.
And their most important ingredient,
slice,
fresh water chestnuts.
Slice or cut the water chestnuts, a lot of work. But since she made it in the jai, I love it.
Because jai can take hours to make, today's meal is a shortened version. But their love and enjoyment for jai is the reason these two try to make the dish every year, to keep that Chinese tradition alive.
I make it for the family, and my child family and my farm family. It's fun cooking it. I enjoy making jai.
That's the reason why they decided to submit their jai recipe to the ACC Community Cookbook, because all families have their own stories and recipes of how their dish came to be. This cookbook will be a place for those families to share it with the community. The book will also include soups, noodles, and dumplings, just to name a few.
It's how we feel when we actually eat it, and oh yeah, we enjoy it.
It's fun.
The relationships and stories with each dish is what David Suhu says is the reason why he wanted to be a part in helping to put this cookbook together with ACC Senior Services.
Every ethnic group should do a community cookbook because that is like sharing some of the best parts of the culture.
A chef himself, David says at a young age, he could feel the power of food and how it would bring people together.
People who cook, they're practitioners of culture. So I can remember even as a child going in school, other kids loved me because I would bring an egg roll to school. And so we would trade food.
With a book titled The Foods We Share, The Stories We Tell, David is hoping it'll bring together not only the AAPI communities, but allow people to experience and learn something new. On top of that, the book is meant to preserve family recipes to keep the tradition moving forward.
One book, you can make Vietnamese sandwiches, you can make rice noodle pad thai from the Thai, you can make the pot stickers, dumplings, and get it all in one cookbook, the classic chow meins, and a lot of actually great recipes that reflect the traditional Chinese medicine or culture.
All of this with the ultimate goal of bringing together community, just like Elizabeth and Auntie Molly.
I get emotional. It's a tradition.
Yeah, yes, I love cooking all these years, and I'm glad to share it with you.
No one else better than you to share it with.
Oh my God, I love Molly. She's so sweet. And this book is scheduled to be released on the 1st of September, and it will feature around 150 recipes from various AAPI communities and families. So if you would like to submit your own recipe, the deadline to do that is May 15th. You can also find all the details on how to submit and buy the cookbook at abc10.com. We'll be right back after this. All right, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great night.